Alright, hi everyone. How's it going? And I'm back here today with another video. Now, I've been thinking about, different things and been doing different kinds of videos on, a wide range of topics, as you can tell from my channel. I'm kind of all over the place in different topics and talking about different things. But I got to thinking about something that I've been thinking about for a bit, and I have from time to time gone into schools as a teacher's assistant and also a substitute teacher, and I've noticed certain things. And one thing I want to talk about is students who don't do that well in school but are very autodidactic, hobby studiers. I have noticed this from time to time with students. There'll be a student that won't do that good in school, and yet at the same time that student will be, reading a lot of books, searching websites, going on YouTube, maybe listening to audio books. And you do see this sometimes. You tend to see it more with boys than you do girls, but, I have seen it. And, I was having a conversation with somebody recently, and we were trying to figure out why this is. Why are there some students that are really into studying, hobby studiers, and yet they don't do good in school? And the conclusion we came up with was, kind of difficult. I mean, we really didn't know. And, it's really kind of an interesting concept. Now, I'm not saying everybody. There are some students that are hobby studiers that are autodidactic that do great in school. But, there are some of those who are really into studying and, reading and read a ton of books, and yet they don't do that good in school. And why is this? And I remember seeing Ayn Rand on the Phil Donahue show, and I saw some videos because I know she was on the Phil Donahue show a lot in the early 80s. And I remember she was saying that she felt that there's a lot of really smart kids who don't do good in school because they're bored and they're not challenged enough. And I got to thinking about that. I mean, could that be the case? What Ayn Rand's saying, that, these students just aren't being challenged enough and all of that. And, it's kind of interesting. I mean, that I don't know. And, I have noticed, like, certain trends with certain things. Like, I've noticed right now a lot of people seem to be into what I would kind of call like truther information, where someone will be like, okay, this and this happened and, kind of went this way, but all that information's kind of watered down. Now I'm going to tell you what really happened. And I find people are really into that and really eat that up, that kind of truther information. And, I find maybe, people who are autodidactic but don't do good in school, maybe they're kind of into that sort of thing. I don't know. Maybe they think that a lot of information is kind of generic and watered down, and that there's, that truthful information out there, kind of behind the scenes, that people aren't being given. So, that's kind of an interesting concept. Another thing, I do know that a lot of times if someone is like really into something, they'll tend to do better on it, say on a test or a quiz or on homework. Like, for example, if you're really into like the Vikings or the ancient Greeks, you're going to do a lot more studying on that, a lot more research, and you're going to connect to that information on a much deeper level than someone who's not into that. Than someone who could kind of care less about that and is just going through the motions. If you're really into it, generally a person's going to do better on it. But, like I'm saying, there are some situations where there are kids, and I've noticed this in my time going into schools, that, there are kids who, are very autodidactic, are really into it, and yet for whatever reason, they just don't do that good in school. It's definitely something that you do see from time to time, and it's kind of difficult to really say, as to why this sort of thing happens. Why does this kind of thing occur? And some teachers will notice this and some don't. Sometimes these kids that are real autodidactic and don't do good in school kind of are ignored, and people don't acknowledge the fact that they're really into studying. So that's another interesting concept right there. And again, I'm not saying everybody. There are some people that are real autodidactic and really into studying that do great in school. But I'm just talking about some people that I have noticed from time to time. And, it's very interesting to discuss this kind of stuff. But, for example, maybe people have seen this, but you'll have some people where, when the person was a kid, maybe they weren't really into school, maybe they weren't really into studying, but now that they're an adult, they're watching the History Channel, and they're watching, Neil deGrasse Tyson or Michio Kaku or just all those kinds of things. So they weren't really that into it as a kid. I think you have some of that too, where, you have adults that become autodidactic, is where, like I said, when they were a kid, they just weren't really into it, and there's that cliche that goes, education is wasted on the youth. And if you do think about that, I mean, there is, some truth to that, a little bit of truth to that anyways. But, because you do see adults, like I said, that do get really into studying, and maybe that's because they have more information now, and they're able to build off of the information they have. That could be it too. But, yeah, so, just kind of an interesting thing, and, I would like your, feedback on this. Why do you think this is? Like I said, why do you think there are some students that are really into studying, into learning, that just don't do that great in school? So I'm just wondering, what your feedback is on the subject. Students are still autodidactic, and, I myself encourage people to always, be autodidactic. I don't think people should ever cease to learn just because school ends. I think people should make learning a lifelong thing. I definitely am a big advocate of that. I have to make that clear. But, yeah, so, and that's just kind of, what I wanted to say and, what I wanted to do this video on. And again, if you did watch this video, as always, of course, I do thank you for watching. And if you'd like, feel free to subscribe as well. So I thank you for watching, and have a good night.